Zeruya Shalev. I'm very interested in your books in the subject of trauma that is passing from one generation to the next. How many layers of trauma are there in Israel? We know that the Shoah is the first, but what came next?
Wow, I think Israel is such a post-traumatic country, so it's really hard to count. I mean, it started before the Shoah. I mean, the Jews who came to Israel before the establishing of the states were already post-traumatized. My grandmother, for example, who came to Israel from Poland at 1912, she had a trauma of pogroms that she went through. So most of the people who came even before the state was established were post-traumatic by anti-Semitism, and then of course the terrible Shoah and wars, and then they all came together to live in this very small country surrounded by enemies, and also Jews from the Mizrahi origin. They were also suffered from anti-Semitism, and gathering there in Israel, and then immediately the War of Independence started. You know, so many young people who survived the Holocaust came to Israel, and they were sent to this war, and they were killed in the war. So, I mean, I don't know where to start and I don't know where to end, because then all the wars and the terror attacks and the existential threat. So, never-ending traumas for us in Israel. Yes.
How can one get himself out of this story, of this trauma that is passing from one generation to another?
Well, I don't know if we should get ourselves out of it. I think we should remember it. We should remember the past. We should be aware of the past, but we shouldn't let it control us or impose itself on us. So I think this is the mission, like to learn what we can from history, but still to be full of hope for the future.
Do you believe that it's better for a child sometimes to be raised without knowing the sad stories that happened to his parents, to his grandparents, or it is better to know?
Well, it's a hard question, and of course it depends on the age of the child and on its character. I don't think we can make generalizations. Of course, the truth is important, but on the other hand, I don't think it's the most important issue, especially when we raise children. I don't think we should tell them everything, and I think we should keep it to make it right for their age, for their mentality. I can tell you from my personal experience that the fact, my mother was a widow before she had me. She lost her first husband in the War of Independence. He was also a Holocaust survivor, and he died in the War of Independence. And she used to tell me a lot about him. I was born 10 years later, and she used to tell me a lot, and she used to grieve him with me, together with me, and to show me photos and to tell me stories about him. And I identified with her so extremely, and I remember myself wondering or thinking about this absurd situation that I'm so sad about his death, and I'm so sad about her. But on the other hand, if he wouldn't have died, I wouldn't have been born. And I was thinking, whom would she choose if she had the choice, me or him? And of course, it made my childhood much more complex.
It was a little bit too much.
A little bit too much, yes. So
to understand.
Yes.
You know, you wrote in a book that the Jews have given the world too many stories. Says one character. I don't remember the title of the book. Indeed, are we today in a sort of inflation of storytelling? Because basically everyone today has the claim to tell a story. The politicians want to tell a story. Journalists have to tell a story.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I still love stories. I still think it's the most lovable way to communicate through stories, and stories always have something more to say, and I still like it.
You use stories from the Bible. I asked you last evening what was your favorite story. What story you didn't like from the Bible?
Well, there were stories without any happy end that they were very difficult for me. For example, the story of King Saul, with that he used to be very close to David, that became king after him, and the relation between them, and the stories about Saul, who became so depressed and paranoid and tried to kill David. I remember that I was always shocked by this story, and sometimes Bibi reminds me of King Saul because of his paranoid tendency that increasing with the years, and it has a very bad impact on the whole state.
Any power, when a man has too much power, the power will become pathological?
I think that there is a huge risk in being for such a long time in power, like for being prime minister for such a long time. You lose the contact with reality. You're surrounded by people who whisper in your ears, and you don't know the reality anymore. And I think it happened to Netanyahu, and it happens to a lot of leaders who stays too much time in power. Yes.
In your recent book, Destiny, you explore not only the gaps that appear between the two partners, husband and wife, as usual, but also those that appear inside of the country. Israel is no longer reduced to Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is the most common, interpretation. Yes. What are the country's greatest rifts? And how do you build bridges? How can bridges be built?
What are the country's biggest conflicts?
Yes.
Well, yes, it's Israel has so many conflicts now. I think it's one of the most conflictual time of Israel. Even though the years that I mentioned in the scene, like 47, 48, there was also a lot of inner conflicts. But since then, I think now we have reached the point where the situation is the most difficult and conflictual, and it has a lot to do with Netanyahu too, because as many popular leaders, he did everything he can to increase hate and to increase the diversity in the division. So the division in Israel. So we are extremely divided now, like between the supporters of this judicial overall and the protesters, between Jews and Arabs, between Palestinians and Israelis, between religious and secular, and it really became very frightening and very depressing, because we don't feel anymore. I mean, we still have to stay together. There is no other way, and sometimes it is so hard to create a normal conversation. And Israelis, they are very outspoken, so it immediately can create a violent argument. But I still have hope for building bridges. I hope that first of all, during the protest, we could see not so many, but we could see some bridges that are being built, because people from the right, people from and Orthodox people too, joined the protest, and it became less sectorialic. So it gives me a lot of hope, and also I believe that, I hope that after Netanyahu, we can cure the wounds of the society. Maybe not completely, but I believe it can be better again. And for example, this movement that I joined years ago, Women Wage Peace, and this is the main issue there, like to try to build bridges. First of all, between women, Palestinian women, Arab women, Bedouin women, with Israelis, and it really gets stronger and stronger, and it's easier to start with women than with men.
Why? Because of this, I don't know, emotional power of woman?
I think so.
Because of the maternity? Because
I think that what we have in common is more than what separates us, and since being mothers and being connected to the most basic feeling of I want to take care of my son. I want my boy to, or my girl to stay alive in this place. So it brings us all together, whether if we are Palestinians or Israelis from the periphery, and it's a good starting point.
We saw in your book that another trauma is very powerful, the army trauma.
Yes, the army trauma accompanies our life in Israel, I think in a tremendous way. I mean, it's very influential. The first moment that a baby boy is born, then the mother, or the parents, they think about what will happen in 18 years. I remember when I first looked at the eyes of my son when he was born 27 years ago, I immediately prayed, wow, let's hope that until he will be 18, because this is the age they have to go to the army. So until he will be 18, please give us peace. But he's now 27 and we didn't achieve peace. And I think it affects the way we raise children, especially boys. It's always this feeling of separation, which is getting closer and closer. Maybe we spoil them too much because of it. Even at school, there is always this feeling that the army is waiting, and the army means dangers. The army means wars. And there is no family in Israel who didn't lose someone in the army or in the terror attack or in other kind of tragic events. So yes, it's a very Israeli experience.
And it's a kind of, anxiety that passed from the mother to the...
Yes, to the children too. Yes. My younger son, just 2 days ago, he got his first letter from the army. And watching, seeing his name next to the symbol of the army, it made me, I immediately started to cry. It was so frightening. And I hugged him. He's only 16 now. We still have 2 years, but I immediately hugged him. And I said, oh, please take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself.
And yes. The peace seems to be far away now than, 5 years ago. Because terror attacks happened in Israel in the last year. In the past year.
Well, for years, the Israeli government even doesn't have negotiations about a peace agreement with the Palestinians. It seems like we gave up on it for this time, and it has a lot to do with the Israeli government, but also with the Palestinian leadership. And I really hope that after Abu Mazen, maybe a pragmatic leader will arrive, and maybe it will be possible.
It
just
seems
to
also
start.
that Hamas is stronger and stronger,
Yes.
not weaker.
Yes, it's so depressing, really, that it's always the extremers who are stronger and their voice is heard, while there are so many moderate civilians that would love to live in peace in the Palestinian authorities and of course in Israel too. But somehow I feel that the leaders, they always take us back.
Do you think it's easier to speculate people's fear than to give them hope, political hope?
Yes. This is what Netanyahu is doing for many years. Yes.
You are a victim of a terror attack. Do you
Yes.
still feel the fear?
A bit. It's less and less, of course, because time really helps. But I still feel very uncomfortable if I drive like next to a bus, because I saw the bus exploding. And also when I hear noises, sudden noises, or when I find myself in a crowded place, I start feeling this fear. It's in my body now. It's not. I cannot control it. I wish I could.
You know, a theme that is less common is that of resistance and fighting against the British during the mandate for Palestine. It's a subject that feels to be frustrating for those who have fought in Lehi, but did not find their proper place in social memory. Why was that?
Well,
because we are talking about Haganah, for example, but not about Lehi.
Yes, and I think I wanted to shed light on this period and on this special group of fighters, very unique fighters, very daring, very intellectual. They were different, and I heard stories about them when I was a child, because my father was volunteered to Lehi when he was maybe 16 years old until he was 18. They were so young. It's really unbelievable. So my father, he was not a fighter. He was kind of an ideologue. He used to write their propaganda, and he used to tell us a lot about it. Actually, we never listened, I have to say. We used to roll our eyes and wait to the stories to end, because we got the impression that he's too busy with it. We didn't like his nostalgic so much. But when I started the novel, and when Rachel, the old Lehi fighter, when she entered my book, at first I was so surprised, because I didn't know where did she come from and what does she want from me. But and I was a bit irritated, because I never liked those figures of. I mean, I met them when I was young at home, and they used to come to visit my father, like the Lehi members, very bitter, a bit megalomaniac. I always thought they are a bit crazy. And I was frightened by those very extreme conversations and their bitterness. But many years later, when Rachel knocked on the door of my heart, I wasn't sure that I want to spend so many years writing about her, but she was stubborn, and I stayed with her, and I read a lot about this period, and I could feel her sadness, because they have been almost forgotten, while the other groups of fighters were celebrated in the Israeli history. So, and I guess it was because they were so unique, and fighting the British at 1940 to 1948. It was not a very good timing to fight the British, because the British fought the Germans. So this is one of the reasons why no one, almost no one, supported the Lehi fighters, although they had such a unique and beautiful vision.
Did you feel that you understood better your father after writing this book?
Yes.
Like making peace with him, I don't know, or understand some...
Yes. Yes, I did. Even though he's completely different from the father in the book, and I didn't have to make peace with him because he was a good father, and it's not that he didn't make mistakes, but he was a good father, much better than Atara's father. But yes, I felt. For the first time, I could feel what he went through, and I was so sad that he's already dead, and that I cannot tell him that I understand him, better now, especially this tragic atmosphere that he lived in, and I think it has a lot to do with the Lehi.
Yeah, I found it, it's a privilege, for example, when we can see the mother or the father, not only in their role as a mother and father, but also as a woman, as a man. Do you think that is there such a moment for each of us to see our mother like a woman, to understand our mother like...
Yes.
It's very hard to separate the mother from...
Yes, I think it's very difficult when we are young, but I think that growing up and reaching the ages of our parents where we can still remember, when we have clear memories of our parents when they were 40, 50, 60. Then it's easier to see them as human beings. Yes, and it's very interesting.
And it's a privilege to
Yes.
have this moment, because many of us didn't get the chance
Yes,
to be, I don't know, to drink a coffee with the mother,
Yes.
as two women, for example, and to
Yes.
understand the mother.
Yes, you're right.
With your mother, did you have this kind of relationship?
Yes. But I think with my mother, it was a bit different, because she wanted to be my friend, and she used to tell me a lot about
Her life before.
before, but also about her difficulties in the present, like with my father, with her. She used to be a painter, so with her painting, and I mean, now when I look back, I don't think it was very healthy, to share everything with your child. But I think maybe it helped my creative my creativity by listening. I mean, I learned to listen. And listening is very important for writing.
How to give the right to be unhappy, because we are living in a world where everybody is almost obliged to be happy on social media.
Interesting. I never thought about it. Maybe because I'm not in the social media. Yes, you're right. I was always attracted to sad stories, and yes, maybe it has a lot to do with my childhood and my mother. But I was always more interested in sad stories, and I like to tell sad stories even to my friends until now. I never. If they ask me, I never say everything is fine, everything is great. I'm always looking for the shadows, because I find it much more interesting to share the shadows than to share happiness, like superficial happiness.
Yeah. But you always save your characters. You always give them a second chance.
Yes.
Is it the power of literature?
I
the
think
real life is the same?
No, unfortunately. In real life, sometimes we get second chance, even third chance, but not necessarily. And when I write, I feel like I'm the therapist of my characters, and one of my roles is to accompany them in this long way towards not happiness, towards progress, and maybe changing perspectives or things like this. So as a therapist, I don't like to leave them completely lost. So maybe this is the reason why I try to act in a not so realistic way, by trying to give them a second chance. But since I'm a great believer in progress and change, and I think that literature has a lot to do with changing, then it is important to me to give them and to give my readers a bit of hope.
What about you? How do you feel when you finished a book? Are you liberated or overwhelmed? Or feeling sad?
You can guess that I feel sad. Well, of course, it's a mixture of very strong feelings, because I spent so much time with my books. Like, I wrote Destin for 5.5 years, almost 6 years. So it's long time.
It's like a breakup after you.
Completely. I feel it's like a kidnapped. I feel that my publisher is kidnapping my baby from me, and my only wish is to have 1 more month, 1 more year, just to write it again and again. It's really hard for me to separate. But then, and then I start to be a little nervous, like, how will it be accepted? And I don't like this stage of my way. I mean, I prefer writing than publishing. And so when the book is published, I start to be
it belongs to the readers now.
Exactly. And slowly I start to feel a bit like a stranger to the book. I mean, people talk to me about it, and I feel like I'm not so sure anymore. I don't remember. Like, I think that I have to be disconnected from it sometimes in a brutal way, in order to stand the separation. So this is my situation now, I can say.
How is to be raised in a kibbutz? Because it seems to be traumatic also for Hemda, for example, or for her children. How is to be?
Well, actually, I was born in the kibbutz, but my mother was one of the first children of the kibbutz.
Like Hemda.
Like Hemda, yes. I took some of my mother's stories for the image for the character of Hemda, but I myself did not grow up there, because my parents left when we were babies, my brother and I, and they moved to a small college where they were teachers. So it was like the complete opposite of growing up in the kibbutz, because the kibbutz is so, you have no privacy. All the children grow up together without the parents. It's kind of very experimental childhood. But my childhood was very different, because we moved to this college where we were very lonely. We had a lot of privacy, almost no children around. Only my brother and I and our cats and our parents. And I think that it enriched my imagination a lot, because I had no one to play with, and we were very, it was far away from everywhere. So I used to dream all the time, and I was a very dreamy child, and I don't think I would survive in the kibbutz, or maybe I wouldn't be able to become a writer if I was in the kibbutz, because there was no room for the individual there. So I'm glad they moved.
It was a social experiment.
Yes.
The only way that socialism
Yes.
succeeded, actually.
Yes, you're right.
It is my last question, and I know it isn't a pleasant question for Israeli. Is this two-state solutions the only one possible? It is still on the table?
I think so. I mean, I cannot see any other solution. I mean, the one-state solution is really dangerous, and I think it's the only way. You know, like divorce, we have to try to make this separation, and maybe later we will be able to be like good neighbors. But first of all, we have to be separated. But you know, I'm still hopeful. But I mean, I admit that I'm very scared from this Palestinian state. I mean, I want it to come. I want it to be established, because I think they deserve it, and I think it's only fair to let them have their states. But if it will become a state of terror, then it won't be aside Israel. It will be instead of Israel, because they can hurt us very badly. So it's a question of trust. And
actually, it wasn't the last question.
Yes.
What made Netanyahu become an authoritarian leader? Because he wasn't like that 10 years ago, let's say.
Yes, you're right. Netanyahu, I never agreed with him. I never supported him, but I appreciated him, and I think that he was quite a good prime minister for a long time, and he really loved the country, and he was very devoted to the country. But since 2015, when the police started to investigate him for 3 criminal cases, and then the state took him to court, I think it changed him completely in a very dramatic and tragic way, and he started to behave like a violent husband. You know, he was a devoted lover, and he became like a violent husband that without any borders. I mean, he's willing to sacrifice the state for his own sake, because he's so afraid from his trial. He's afraid to go to jail. And of course I can understand it, but I think the price is terribly, terribly high now in Israel. We all pay a terrible price, and who knows what will happen. I wish he would quit. I wish he would, if he wants to prove he's innocent, he should quit and go to court and be devoted to prove he's innocent. But he cannot do it while he's prime minister and using all his power to get rid from this trial.
Let's hope that the destiny will become better next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.